Dix. Is it going through? Is it fine? Are you good?
Thank you so much, Ndishishi and Nicole and Team Studio 2. Top of the morning to Namibia. My name is Denver Kisting. We are coming to you live from the Winter Country Club in the Namibian capital. Now, the Economic Association of Namibia, in collaboration with the Namibia Investment Promotion and Development Board, as well as the Hanns Seidel Foundation, are hosting the Namibia Green Hydrogen Conference 2022 today and tomorrow. The conference, amongst others, serves as a forum for Namibian and international stakeholders to discuss and analyze the green hydrogen industry while highlighting Namibia as a possible destination for investments. Let's take a look at what you can expect during this hour of Good Morning Namibia before we give it back to Team Studio 2. Mr. James Newpay, who is the Green Hydrogen Commissioner as well as the Presidential Economic Advisor, will be here to talk to us about what exactly green hydrogen is and what the potential benefit is for Namibia and her people. Equally scheduled for this hour, the Fortescue Future Industry Manager for the African region, that is Mr. Brew Ayela Terfi, as well as the Fortescue Future Industries Program Manager for Namibia, Mr. Chris Movirongo, will also join us to talk to us about exactly what their company does and what role they are playing in decarbonizing the planet. Later during this hour, we'll engage the Executive Director of the Southern African Science Centre for Climate Change and Adaptive Land Management, SASCAL, that's Dr. Jane Olwich, and she'll be here to talk to us about their role in transforming the global energy sector, as well as the role of research and human capital development in green hydrogen development in the land of the brave. And to wrap matters up this morning, we'll be engaging Mr. Ricardo Nkwagesep, who's the project manager for the conference, on what exactly it is that we can expect today as well as tomorrow. This is an hour that promises to burst at the seams with wholeness and goodness in as far as it relates to green hydrogen, so do stay tuned. of the nation's most favorite breakfast show, Good Morning Namibia. Now, as we unpack the developments and economic opportunities, what did you say there? Welcome back. You're still tuned into the Tuesday edition of the nation's most favorite breakfast show, Good Morning Namibia. Now, as we unpack the development and economic opportunities of the green hydrogen sector and what it will bring to the Namibian scene specifically, I'm now joined by the Fortescue Future Industries Manager for the African region, that is Mr. Brew Ayela Terfi, as well as the Fortescue Future Industries Program Manager for Namibia, Mr. Chris Movirongo. Good morning, gentlemen, and welcome to Good Morning Namibia.
Good morning, Denver. Thank you for hosting us.
Mr. Terfi, let's please start with you. Talk to us about Fortescue Future Industries and your global footprint.
Thank you, Denver. So Fortescue is a global resources company. It's one of the largest in the world, concentrated on both the mining and the renewable energy sector. On the mining side, we're the fourth largest iron ore miner globally, producing over 180 million tons of iron ore per year and employing over 10,000 people. In terms of numbers, we make revenues in the financial year 21 of $22 billion, net profit after tax of $10 billion. It's a very large organization that has, large mines connected by our own railway lines, 800 kilometers long, our own ports, our own ships, our own trains. So very large resources company on the mining side. On the energy side, Fortescue Future Industries is also quite a significantly large company in its own right, with a global portfolio of projects spanning 23 countries. We have 1,000 people across the world, basically developing green hydrogen, green ammonia and derivative projects for the decarbonization of the globe.
Thank you very much for that overview. So talk to us about what the picture looks like for Fortescue in Namibia.
Thank you very much, Denver. As Brew have indicated, Fortescue is a global company, and Fortescue aims to produce green hydrogen and green ammonia at a global scale by 2030. Fortescue have gone around the globe where it went and identified areas like Namibia with a high potential renewable energy resources, and where it want to develop these green hydrogen projects. In Namibia itself, I think it's well known now by Fortescue that what is our interest? Our interest is to partner with the Namibian government, where we want to develop jointly, together with government, these green hydrogen projects and produce green hydrogen and green ammonia. And we also would like to support the Namibian government in partnership, of course, to make its ambition to become one of the green hydrogen hub in the region. And also, lastly, we would like to support the Namibian government, not only in the green hydrogen projects that we are talking about, but also to create a secondary industry related to the green hydrogen project for those jobs that are important for us. And what is it that we as FFI is bringing to the table to the Namibian people? I think for us, we are saying the most important thing is the entrepreneurial leadership that we have at Fortescue, where our chairperson, led by our chairperson, Dr. Andrew Forrest, where he founded Fortescue Metal Group in 2003. And 5 years after that, that mine is a mining company in Australia. They started producing ore, loading ore after 5 years after it was found. 19 years as we speak now, Fortescue Metal Group is the fourth biggest producer of iron ore in the world. What are we also bringing to the table? I think we have that experience in-house of developing big projects that require to develop the green hydrogen projects as we know them. Fortescue, taking from the iron ore business, Fortescue have developed 4 mines as we speak now. It has developed its own railway, as Brew have alluded to, of 800 kilometers of its own railway to take ore from the mines to the port. It has developed its own railway, its own port with all the port supportive facilities able to transport or to export the ore to the other parts of the world.
So
there's that experience within in-house.
Thank you so much, sir. Mr. Durfee, we are mindful of how technical all of this does get.
Yeah.
But we want the buy-in of the average Namibian. And I think it's critically important to also break it down in layperson's terms.
Definitely.
When we are talking about decarbonizing the planet, what is it exactly that we're referring to?
Thank you for that question, very important. I think decarbonization essentially means either the reduction or the removal of carbon from our systems, from our energy systems, from our economic systems, from our supply chains. As you know, we're very reliant on fossil fuels at the moment, and fossil fuels contain carbon. And when you burn these fossil fuels, they release carbon dioxide. When you exploit them, they release methane, etc., into the atmosphere. And these, as you know, are greenhouse gases. So they trap heat in our atmosphere and cause our planet to warm up. So that is what we mean by decarbonization. It's essentially removing our reliance or reducing our reliance on these carbon-based fuels so that we can maintain our planet, preserve it for our children, for the next generation. That's why it's so critically important.
Thank you. Now, sir, your colleague already preempted what I'd like you to touch on. Could you briefly flesh it out in terms of the importance of this process of decarbonization to the planet?
Denver, I think it's very important. And I know when we were in school a few years ago, I mean, we had these greenhouse gases emissions effects, which we thought it was just a subject and just for us to pass. But as we're speaking now, the world is cooking. And all the evidence of the planet warming is there. As we speak now, I don't want to go maybe far from home. Those effects can be felt in Namibia, where we had a recent biggest drought that we had 2 years ago, and still continuing in some parts of the of the country. So these effects of greenhouse effect that we are talking about is not something that is foreign. We can also feel it here. So it is very important for a country like ourselves, Namibia, to participate, to see how do we participate collectively in also trying to reduce the emission in the world. And so this is something not only for for other parts of the world, is for everybody to participate into it.
Thank you very much. Mr. Durfee, you've helped us establish what exactly decarbonization is. Mr. Chris has helped us understand its significance and the role that it plays. Where does green hydrogen fit into this decarbonization picture?
Glad to elaborate on that. So green hydrogen is critical for what are known as the hard-to-abate sectors. And these are sectors that are difficult to decarbonize. So, for example, small vehicles, light industrials, you can connect directly to the grid. You can use batteries. But then there's these sectors that are difficult to decarbonize using direct electrification, such as heavy transport. You think of ships, you think of planes, you think of large trucks. It's impossible to run those on batteries. You think of heavy industrial, like cement plants, steel plants. At the moment, there's 50 billion tons of green hydrogen gases greenhouse gases that are emitted into the world. And 8% of that comes from the iron and steel industry. For example, 2.5% comes from aviation, 5% from cement. So these hard-to-abate sectors deserve as much attention in terms of decarbonization as everything else. And that's where hydrogen becomes a critical component. It's critical to address the problems from these sectors.
Thank you. Now, sir, in your overview, you explained to us how it will benefit the country. But I want us to unpack how exactly will it benefit the average Namibian? How will it benefit the Namibian community?
Thank you very much, Denver. I think in terms of Fortescue, it's very important. It takes this our community where we operate very seriously. And just to mention a few, I'm not going to talk about what is it that we can do. I want to give you an example where Fortescue has operated in Australia, where it has taken average citizens of that country to become big contractors. And we talk about relating to Namibia. We talk about the NIFCA. We talk about the BEE to try to uplift those previously disadvantaged Namibians or companies, or Namibian companies as a whole. Fortescue, what it has done, it created or it established a project in Australia called a Billion Opportunity Project. So let me not go into that. I think Brew is going to elaborate that into detail, and that relate to what we can do in terms of Namibia to the normal Namibian people.
Thank you very much, Mr. Terfi. Let's get into it.
Sure.
The 1 billion project in Australia.
So the Billion Opportunities program is essentially a program that we've been running since 2011 through our operations in Australia. And it's basically a way of empowering local communities, not just through direct jobs, but through contracts and subcontracts being awarded to small and medium-sized enterprises that are owned by Aboriginal communities in Australia, but essentially by local communities and up-and-coming businesses. And this is a way to make sure that the effects, the economic benefits are widely spread and shared, and empowering these local businesses. We did that not just through giving them these contracts, but also supporting the loan schemes and so on to enable them to participate. So it's a story that has great relevance to when we talk about Namibia, as Chris mentioned, and the previously disadvantaged individuals, upskilling or economic involvement programs that we have here. So it's the same philosophy that Fortescue is applying in Australia that it wants to bring across the world in its project.
So are you saying that you will bring the 1 billion project to Namibia as well? Is that what's on the cards?
I mean, we want to get a project here in Namibia, and wherever we go, we come with our values. We're a values-based organization with our philosophy. So, and this is definitely part of that.
Gentlemen, we've run out of time. Yes. Sir, your brief concluding remarks, please, this morning.
I think I would like to applaud the Namibian government to create this conducive environment for green hydrogen, as we know it here, and also we have been following their progress, what they did to go to the regions where they have been teaching the normal people or the regional people about the green hydrogen, which is very important.
Thank you very much. Your brief concluding remarks, please, sir.
Thank you. I think for me, I would say it's important that we focus on the decarbonization of the globe. I think it's important for companies like us to lead by example. We're heavy industrial, not a .com and internet business. So, and it's important that we show the rest of the world that it can be done. And we're doing it. We're not just talking about it. We are acquiring, for example, Williams, if you know Formula Ones. We acquired the battery energy division of that organization for $200 million to make sure that we decarbonize our operations. We're replacing our mining fleet. So it's important for people like us who are big emitters to take the lead and show to the world that we can decarbonize, we can use green energy, we can rid the world of fossil fuels. So.
Thank you for your time. Thank you for sharing expertise, and may the deliberations today and tomorrow be fruitful.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you for hosting us.
Yeah.
There you have it, Mr. Brew Ayele Terfi. He's the Africa Region Fortescue Future Industries Manager, as well as Mr. Chris Movirongo, Namibia Fortescue Future Industries Manager, talking to us about exactly what it is that Fortescue is doing across the globe, but also in Namibia. We will be right back after a brief break. Welcome back. Of course, you're still tuned in to the Tuesday edition of the nation's most favorite breakfast show, Good Morning Namibia. And we continue our conversations on green hydrogen here at the Windhoek Country Club. Next up, we engage Dr. Jane Olwach, who is the Executive Director of the Southern Africa Science Service Centre for Climate Change and Adaptive Land Management, on the role of research and human capital development in green hydrogen development in the land of the brave. Good morning, Doc, and welcome to Good Morning Namibia.
Good morning. Thank you so much for inviting me again.
How are you doing on this gift of a Tuesday morning?
I'm very well. I'm excited. I think this is such an important conference for us.
It indeed is, but you're always excited because you're always passionate. These are the issues that are close to your heart.
Yes.
Doc, talk to us about where SASCL fits in to the green hydrogen picture.
It's all about climate change. There are two ways we can respond to climate change. One, by adaptation, and the second one by mitigation. So SASCO has been doing a lot of work in adaptation. Adaptation means that we strengthen ourselves and our economies and our environment to withstand the impacts of climate change. On the other hand, we need to reduce emissions directly, and that is the mitigation. So, of course, green hydrogen is one of the best way we can reduce emission for the future. Totally available, new, but we must take step by step. And that is really our role. We have also to contribute to the reduction of emission. You know very well, the world is lagging behind in the reduction of emissions. I think we have discussed this before. Every year we meet and we say we have even more emissions than we had. So it's important that all of us individually, collectively, do actions to reduce emissions.
We have in fact spoken about it at a number of occasions, and one thing that you're also very clear about, notwithstanding the fact that Namibia's carbon footprint is not extensive, we have a responsibility because it affects us. Just provide that context for us briefly.
Exactly. We acknowledge that countries in Africa, and particularly Namibia, we do not emit a lot. But at the same time, our vulnerability is higher, because of, first of all, our countries are already very hot. So any increase in temperature really puts us at even unmeasurable hot temperatures that we cannot survive in. Namibia also is a water-stressed country. So any droughts that we've been having makes Namibia very, very vulnerable, and drought affects agricultural production, it affects water, it affects diseases, and this really impacts people directly. And therefore, we cannot wait for the world to come and help us. We must take action ourselves and lead the whole process. So that's why, even if we don't emit, it is our responsibility to look after our people and our countries.
Hearing you say that we can't afford to wait and we need to start doing something about it right away, is it already evident that impact of climate change on our vulnerability?
Yes, it's really interesting now because I have been watching news. I don't watch news a lot, but what is happening in Europe is serious. We have never seen droughts happening in Europe like it is now. There are droughts, crops are failing, there are fires, the water is decreasing at a diminishing rate. And these are the things we've been experiencing in SADC, whereby in Namibia we lose a lot of cattle when it's very dry. It is here, we see it every time, every day, and as we go into the future, it gets worse. So we are losing time, and the time is now, that's what we have. So we have to do everything we can to make sure that we can survive. And I can tell you, it's no longer even about the money you have. It's not about anything. It's about a collective effort to make sure that we reduce emission and safeguard the environment and our sustainability as a human race. We are at risk.
Now we're getting to what needs to be done and what is being done. In as much as there's general belief that green hydrogen is part of the answer to our problems, you're also very passionate about research and development. Did we do enough research about green hydrogen before we got here where we are?
Not really. I believe that the whole world has not done enough research, and leave alone us. SASCO has taken place in the first project in green hydrogen, whereby we are looking at the potential of our African countries, including Namibia, to produce green hydrogen. And I'm happy to say that next week we're actually having a technical closed meeting to view the atlas. So we don't have technical expertise. We do not have technological know-how, because green hydrogen has a new technology, desalination of water, development of electrolyzers, students, scientists, engineers. This is new. We need a lot of this new expertise to be able to look after our project. But at the same time, we cannot wait. So we must do them together. We must go into project, but at the same time, every project must have capacity development, must have research. Another way, if you look at the countries that are developed, it is very clear that research and capacity building are related to economic development. And in fact, funding of research itself is directly related to economic development. You'll find that all the developed countries, if you look at the amount of money they are putting into research, it's a lot. In the African countries, in Namibia, we still have a gap to fund our universities, to fund our researchers, to make sure that we have the human capital we need that will develop jobs, will innovate. We have had so many years whereby someone finishes and all you want to do is to go to the university or to get a job in government, but that has to end. We need students that are finished and they create jobs themselves, innovation. So capacity development research are directly related to economic development. And that's what we need.
Doc, we are mindful of the time pressure and that we find ourselves in a live experiment. We need to implement and do and research at the same time. But hearing you concede that we have not done enough research and in fact that we do not have the technical know-how, how big of a problem is that?
We are starting off, and it is a gap that we must fill. And I commend the government of Namibia for really putting green hydrogen on top of the political agenda. And because of that, that's why there's this program that we are running together of bursaries for young people, which is funded by the Federal Ministry of Education and Research. So there is a big gap, but there's no risk because we have plans and programs to work with our government to increase capacity. And it's exciting, because it's a new field that creates opportunities for young people, for technological exchange, and of course, at the end of the day, it's a greenhouse gas emission reduction. Yeah.
Now, for the layperson to understand this, are there any drawbacks to green hydrogen? Is there potential damage to the environment?
At this moment, there is no research that says so. The only hydrogen that we worry about is what we call gray hydrogen, because this is produced using fossil fuel and it emits greenhouse gases. But green hydrogen, no, it is the cleanest energy. But we must be able to have the value chain or production that is safe, so that exactly, technology has to be okay, it has to be safe, it has to be studied so that we don't have any accidents. And that's what we have to do. Again, research, capacity development, and technological know-how.
Which are those possible accidents that you are referring to?
Well, there is not enough that is talking about accidents, but some people talk about hydrogen leakage. And I do not have enough scientific evidence to support that it can happen, but technology has to be safe, has to be understood, have to be studied. Yeah.
Now, financing of this industry may be a bone of contention. We're talking about hybrid models to finance it. We're talking about the big role that the corporates can play because they've already established themselves in terms of being able to weather certain storms, and the smaller entities might struggle. But we can't talk about financing of an industry without talking about the human capital component, which is also a matter that is close to your heart. Talk to us about that, please.
Yeah, so as I think the discussion we're having is extremely important. Green hydrogen is a new field of study. We therefore need scientists, engineers, we need technicians, because remember, we're producing green hydrogen using renewable energy, solar energy, water. We need people to understand desalination. We need to have universities that are equipped with these instruments, with students and researchers that have really done work Some time back, we visited both universities of Namibia and NAST. And the areas of desalination, for example, is something that we have to start doing now. But then we wonder, we've been having seawater for a very long time. Even in South African universities, we must have research agenda on desalination, and we do not have it. But as I say, we are busy looking at how to capacitate, but yes, we need a lot of people understand green hydrogen value chain from production to storage, to transportation, to production, and also the scientific field of safety around green hydrogen. It's a gap, but it's exciting because it creates opportunities for young people. And we are happy that we are contributing to it through our government and funding from the German government, particularly the Federal Ministry of Education and Research.
You did share with us earlier, and we need to have regard to that we're not sufficiently funding research. We're not sufficiently funding institutions of higher learning, particularly as developing countries.
Yes.
But we also do know that developing countries have pressure on their fiscus. How are we going to be able to strike that balance between prioritizing other critical areas as well as prioritizing research with limited resources?
I am one of those people who believes that Africa is not a poor continent, although many times we sell our continent as poor. We have a lot of resources. We must prioritize the right aspects, and capacity building, research, funding our universities is critical for economic development of the African continent. So there is enough money in Africa. I believe in it. We must prioritize how to use it.
How important is the platform of this conference to help us drive this journey forward?
This is really important. And once again, I say I always thank the Namibian government. First of all, the political energy on green hydrogen. And even I have not heard many African countries having a national green hydrogen conference. There are a lot of misunderstandings about green hydrogen. There are so many views, and there are people who are still denying because they think we are competing with fossil fuel. No, this is the future. So this conference provides a platform for people to exchange ideas, to discuss more, to be honest about where we are going and what we have to do. This is really great, and I'm happy to be part of it.
You will also be addressing the delegates. We certainly do not want to preempt your address, but what will you be focusing on, and why is that important, Doc?
Again, my most important priority for Africa is research and capacity building, and particularly when we enter a new area. So I'm going to talk about issues of capacity building, what we have done, what is missing, funding the universities, the state of university funding in Africa and in Namibia, if I have statistics, just to show that we need to do more to capacitate our people, to have data. Data is the most important thing now, and information. The person who has more information before you will determine your future, will determine crop prices, will determine where we are going. We must have data and information. This is the most important resource now in the 2022.
Now, in order to ensure that this conference is not just another talk shop, it needs to fulfill two critically important goals. One is to ultimately influence policy, and the other is to see to that we establish a green hydrogen hub in Namibia. What is it that we need to do post-conference to ensure that?
There are a lot of things that we need to do post-conference, and we are now in the beginning phase. We have to, first of all, awareness, so that people are aware of where the country is going, and they have enough information to understand green hydrogen. And we must always put green hydrogen in the context of climate change, because that is the key. We do not want to portray green hydrogen as a new business venture without really understanding the reason we are there. So awareness is extremely important. We have to do capacity building. We have to do some reforms in policies and regulation. Those are key. We need, importantly for me, we need to develop partnership. We need to have cooperation, first and foremost amongst ourselves, and then we expand. Because when we project a strong team from Namibia or from the region, we have a better chance to cooperate with the rest of the world.
You're in fact touching on the heart of the matter, Doc, and we need to start wrapping up our conversation.
Yeah.
Green hydrogen and establishing this industry cannot and will not be a one-person show.
Not at all.
Why is that collaboration in country, but also across the globe, so critically important?
Firstly, it needs a lot of expertise in climate, in environment, in engineering, in economics, in policy, in legal. So we need a lot of people. Then secondly, it needs a lot of resources. It's not cheap and it's long term. If you want something to be sustainable, you must have strong people bonded for a cause. So we need cooperation. No one can do it alone. And then secondly, it's like one country might not be having a lot of variables that we need for green hydrogen. And in fact, one of the preliminary results we have for the Atlas is that we might need 3 countries. One country might have solar, another one might have wind, another one might have water. So we need that collaboration to really provide a strong team for green hydrogen production. Think about transportation. You have to transport, and that's why we are saying we are only going to produce green hydrogen for domestic, but for commercial purposes. So transportation itself needs cooperation. Why should one country go to transport green hydrogen if you are not cooperating? So it needs a lot of people, and that is really the critical in having a successful green hydrogen economy in this country.
Doc, your final thoughts before we let you go this morning?
My final thought, again, we must not forget why we are here. It's climate change. Every year as we go into the future, things are getting worse, impacts are getting closer, and our economies are dwindling down because of the struggles of food insecurity, water insecurity. So as we move into green hydrogen, let's put climate change as a central theme and cooperate. Thank you very much.
Doc, thank you for your time and thank you for sharing your expertise so generously. We look forward to your talk tomorrow.
Thank you very much.
That was Dr. Jane Allwatch. She is the Executive Director of the Southern Africa Science Service Center for Climate Change and Adaptive Land Management, talking to us about SASCO's role in establishing our green hydrogen hub in the land of the brave. That's all we had for you this morning coming from the Winter Country Club, but please tune in again at 9 o'clock for the official opening of the Namibia Green Hydrogen Conference 2022. For now, it's back to Ndishishi and Nicole and Team Studio 2. Thank you very much for watching.